Hello, hello. So the Lord was telling me yesterday. Okay, so I put out a message a couple days ago. In the title, I said, God will only allow something to this effect. Anyways, God will allow man to play God in your life, but only for a limited time and in a limited amount of ways. Something to that effect, right? Where basically, now in that message, how the Lord had first given it to me in that context, right, was about not necessarily people close to you, chosen one, like people outside of you, like I talked about, like political, government, medical, things like this, where people try to basically influence you, but also just influence humanity in general, right? Like I talked about how they're trying to create AI, that's playing God. How they try to play around with weather patterns and weather systems, right? To create and cause fires and natural events and stuff, natural disasters. That's playing God. When there's people in other countries and stuff and they're creating false faux wombs to create babies, like grow a baby outside of a mother's womb, right? That's playing God. I remember it was popular in like the 90s and 2000s. They were trying to do cloning, right? GMOs, genetically modified like foods and things, where they're trying to. I talked about this in a past where I was talking about how why is it that like bread stays good for 2 months, literally no change, but then cucumbers and tomatoes and potatoes go bad in like 2 or 3 days. I understand that like fresh produce goes bad, but no, I've lived long enough to see the difference. Like 10 years ago I could have potatoes for 5 or 6 days. Now today they're normal in the store. It's not like I'm picking bad ones, and within like I buy a Monday, by like Wednesday they're bad. And you know what I mean? Like it's because God's told me that they're trying to manipulate and play with the food supply. So they're trying to play around with healthy foods, right? I talked about this in a password as well. But then also make chemical foods the way to go. So if you notice, it's cheaper to buy chemical foods, like processed foods and stuff. It's cheaper. Like it would be cheaper for me at the store to buy pizza pops and a bag of chips than it would be for me to buy lettuce, cucumbers, salad dressing, tomatoes to make a salad. You know what I'm saying? Or it would be cheaper for me to buy a box of cereal than it would be for me to buy a carton of eggs. Or it'd be cheaper for me to buy a 2 liter of pop than it would be for me to buy a liter of milk. Right? You see what I'm trying to say? So that's again intentional, is that they're purposely trying to make the bad foods cheaper and more accessible because they're full of twice as much toxic ingredients that could lead you to being sick, or eating it when you're pregnant that can lead to your child to have a disability, like potentially autism, right? Because that's the other thing too, is that we've talked about Tylenol and things like that, but me personally, I believe it's to do with the food supply. I mean, we all know that here in 2025, the food supply has gradually gotten worse over the last 50 years, right? Decade by decade. And if you compare that data to seeing the incline of autism, it's on par, right? Every decade the food supply gets worse, so does the more stats on autism. Like the autism rate jumps up, right? At the same time. And so I talked about this in the past word. This is not the point of this word, but the Lord's leading me to say what I say. So I don't recommend taking Tylenol when you're pregnant. I don't recommend even like using Vicks Vapo Rub when you're pregnant. There's even certain teas that they say not to drink when you're pregnant. And then Tylenol did post a thing back in 2017 where it said we don't advise you to take this when pregnant. And that's right, is because at the end of the day, it's not like it's going to. You could take Pepto-Bismol when you're pregnant. Like you could, but there could be something that comes from it, right? You could, even when you're pregnant, use a different type of sunblock or sunscreen and have a chemical reaction. This is what I was trying to say in my past message, is that it's not just like, so Trump is like half right and half not, is that in the sense of what he's doing by trying to encourage women to not take Tylenol, because at the end of the day it is a drug and it is a pain reliever. It even says it on the packaging. You can get Tylenol 3s, which is this very same as Tylenol. It's T3s, and it's a higher grade of pure acetaminophen. But in order to get those, you have to get a prescription from the pharmacist to get them. that's how much stronger they are. Okay, so my point in saying that is that obviously Tylenol / acetaminophen is not, it's not just like popping a Flintstones chewable vitamin. It does have properties in it that, can cross the placenta and things like that. So is there a chance that there could be a connection there? Well, of course. It's just like when you give your 6-month-old a vaccine and they tell you not to give your 6-month-old ibuprofen, right? So instead you give your 6-month-old the Tylenol. I mentioned it with my brother. Some children can have allergic reactions to Tylenol. Okay, so my point is that if your 6-month-old can have an allergic reaction from Tylenol, then is it really the best, awesomest thing to take when pregnant? Probably not, right? And so like with anything, even taking Tums, is safe when pregnant, but it could have a reaction as well, right? So it's so like I said, I don't know why everyone's trying to beat up on Trump when he says this statement, because he's not wrong. To say and address pregnant women and citizens and say, hey, maybe Tylenol isn't the best option when you're pregnant. Take it if you have to, but try not to if you can. I agree with that statement as someone who's had 2 healthy pregnancies, is that your best bet as a woman is to refrain from as much as possible. Now, if you have to take something, take it, right? If it's okay. But if you can not take it, then try not to, right? Like, for instance, when I was pregnant with my babies, I would get heartburn so bad, and I would take Tums, and my doctor told me it was okay, and she had been an OBGYN for like 30 years, and so I trusted her implicitly, right? So I did take Tums and Rolaids when I was pregnant, and it sure helped. However, was I popping the Tums and Rolaids every hour on the hour? No, I wasn't. There were times I did suffer during the pregnancy with extreme heartburn for hours that I didn't take a Tums or Rolaids for, right? So I technically could have in a day, say, taken 6 Tums, and I only ended up taking maybe 1. Because it didn't mean I only needed 1, I needed the other 5, but I just struggled to push through it. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I mean is I did take Tylenol when I was pregnant. Yes. The doctors that I had, when I was a kid, when I was pregnant, when my mom was pregnant with me, etc., they've always said that, don't take ibuprofen, but take Tylenol. So not once did I take Advil when I was pregnant, but I did take ibuprofen, right? But not once did I take Advil or ibuprofen, but I did take Tylenol, right? Because one of the symptoms that you can have when pregnant, and I did, was major headaches, right? And so sometimes I would have to I'd be on like day 3 with my headache. And you don't want to stress the baby out either. And when mom's in pain, baby is stressed. So I would just take the Tylenol, right? But I mean, women have been doing that for decades, But I think one of the biggest things for women is that and I don't think men understand this. You don't find out you're pregnant until a month to 3 months in, okay? So you can already have been, like, you could get pregnant September 1st and not feel pregnant or think you're pregnant or test yourself until October 1st or November, December 1st, right? So my point in saying that is, by the time the woman has started to receive symptoms and either tests herself or thinks to herself, I wonder, you know what I mean? She could already be 1 to 2 months along before that happens. So the thing of it is that what did the woman consume in the 1 to 2 months before she started to feel the symptoms, test herself, and find out she was pregnant, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is the thing, is like, you could get pregnant September 1st, not know you're pregnant at all, take some ibuprofen, some Advil on September 15th, September 21st, when you're 2 or 3 weeks pregnant, and have no clue you're even pregnant at this point. Not feel any symptoms until, say, October 5th, go take a test, it's positive, and you instantly, stop everything. You stop whatever you're doing, you're mindful, you watch what you eat, you get on your prenatals, things like this, da-da-da-da-da. But the point is, 2 weeks before you tested, you already took some ibuprofen for your migraine. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the thing too, is that it's not like women get pregnant September 1st and they know they are September 2nd. There can be a gap of anywhere between 1 to 3 months before a woman even thinks, hey, gee, shucks, I might be pregnant. Or might not even have a clue and go and feel sick and go see the doctor. And the doctor's like, let's give you a a urine analysis just to rule out infections, right? And then it comes back positive for pregnant, and you're like, what? Like, you had no clue, right? Like, I know with me, both my babies were complete surprises, right? And I was like 2 months along with both of them before I found out I was pregnant. So I'm just the type that didn't have very many symptoms until later on, okay? So my point in saying that is that we have to take that into consideration too. Is I'm not saying women did anything to bring that on to their baby, right? But what I am saying is, it's not like it's just like, well, mom took Tylenol when she was 5 months pregnant, that's what did it for the baby. What did mom do in the first 4 weeks of after conception that she didn't even remember or was aware she did? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things. And then it's also God playing God. Like, God decides, like we say, God makes no mistakes, right? So if that is what happens, if there's complications with your pregnancy, or even everything's fine with your pregnancy and delivery and then complications with your baby, like, God plays the part, right? Like I talked about in that password. So going back to the main part of what I was saying is, so God does allow man to play God to a point, but when God decides, it's no different than when a woman's in labor and everything's going perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden God decides, well, no, there's going to be a complication, right? And all of a sudden they're whisking the woman, they're suiting up and they're taking her in for a cesarean, and she's getting, moved into the OR in 10 minutes flat. And so right there, man is playing God, because man is intervening, complication has occurred. Doctor ideally wants to save mom and baby, but sometimes there has to be a choice of either baby or mom, right? And so now doctor is playing God in that moment, right? But it was actually God that decided to have that complication arise in the first place, right? And then whatever the outcome is, if both mom and baby are fine and well, that was God's decision. If just the baby is or just the mom is, that was God's decision, right? So this is what I was kind of indicating in the past word there, and the Lord was kind of touching me back on this, was that, there was that, was what I don't know if I explained that well enough in the past word there that I put out the other day, but that's what I meant by how God will allow man to physically play God on earth until the point comes that God says no, and he intervenes, whatever way, meaning like that doctor could work overtime at trying to save both mom and baby, but if God decides it's mom's last day or baby's, last day, or send baby to heaven or mom to heaven, then that's what's going to happen. It doesn't matter how much that doctor does, right? How educated they are, how much they work at it, how many nurses they bring in. If God decides that it's time for mom or baby to, meet the Lord, then that's what's going to happen ultimately, right? So God allows man to play God to a point, and then that's as far as it goes. And so anyways, so there was that. So then the Lord was talking to me about that message and was saying that some people had clicked because the title of the word was exactly what the word was it not? But some people that are going through their spiritual struggles and situations, right, especially in regards to their kingdom spouse, they took that title to mean more of like a spiritual thing, that like my message was perhaps more so talking about that, right? Is that because, how do I explain it better? Like, okay, so I put out the message I put out. That was what God intended me to say. But then God came back to me the next day and told me that there were people who came across that title and misconstrued it and took it as that what it could possibly be talking about instead was about how these adversaries try to play God in your life, chosen one. And where they try to play God and dictate and determine in a spiritual sense, not so much the physical, medical sense, trying to dictate and manipulate things in our physical environment, like our food supply and our water and things like that and our air, but from a spiritual stance where these adversaries have and are trying to play God in your life and decide if you should be blessed, when you should be blessed, what you should receive, what should be taken away. And basically God, the Bible talks about, so you can take it from both. The scripture that I mentioned in the past word was talking about how in the Bible it speaks of God saying he will close doors that man can't open and open doors that man can't shut, right? So that can be taken from two angles. That can be taken from the medical, governmental, societal type of point of view, where it's like everything I talked about the password in the beginning of this one, where the same thing goes. Like, no matter how much they may try to play with our food supply or doctor play God or, try to kill people or save people, right? It doesn't matter how much they try to manipulate the variables, the Lord is saying, hallelujah. How much they try to manipulate the variables involved, God will decide what's what. And if they successfully kill off some people, that's because God allowed it. And if they want to kill off more people, but God says, no, that's enough, then that's all that they'll be able to sacrifice. The Lord is saying, hallelujah. That is all they'll be able to sacrifice. They want to sacrifice millions, and God will only allow them to sacrifice thousands. You see what I'm saying? It's up to God if he wants millions or thousands, just like how I talked about in the past word about how God knew that Cain was going to take out Abel, and God could have intervened, but he didn't. He caught up on Cain after Cain did it. You see? And so that coincides with what I was saying, right? So this is why man gets off on thinking that they're so egotistical and powerful and money can do anything and my position talks and, I'm so like, just, what's the word, Lord? Like, just, you know what I'm saying? Like, so appreciated, authorized, like notarized, all this stuff. This is how they feel to, is because they get away with it to a point. And then it gets them thinking that their plan to play God was, it bolsters the fact that they believe there's no God because they don't believe in God. See, like, okay, because I believe in God, I would never play God, right? Because I know my role and I know my place and I know that God is sovereign over me. So therefore, I would never, ever try to play God. So what that means for myself and you as well, chosen one, and the children of God, is that if I am dating someone and they choose to leave me for somebody else, I'm going to let that person go with grace. Even if I might be hurt or angry or sad or confused, either way, it's irrelevant. My feelings don't matter because I know that there's a God. And I know that God is in everything, down to the crumb on my floor. You know what I mean? God is in every single little tiny thing. So therefore, I believe that God brings people into our life for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just to help us, physically or spiritually, right? And then if they leave, that was God's decision as well. And so because of the fact that the Lord is talking about what you bind on earth, you loose in heaven. What you loose in earth, you bind on heaven. I can't remember if that's verbatim, but something to that effect. And he's using it to tell me that basically, because he's just saying, hold everything loosely, because what happens with these people that don't believe in God is, I talk about this a lot on my channel, is about control, right? When we don't believe in God, we have our perception around control gets messed up. We start to think that we control everything, and if something's out of our control, this is what leads us to situations, domestic violence, rage, addictions, abuse, etc., acting out, suicides, homicides, you name it, right? This is what 98% of the time leads us down those roads, is it's a lack of control. So not only is our control and our grip on everybody else and everything around us out of whack, but so simultaneously hand in hand is our control on ourselves. We can no longer control ourselves. And so I'll give you an example. Say there's an abusive relationship where the man's abusive to the woman, okay? And because he doesn't have God, he thinks it's okay to abuse the woman. But if he had God, he wouldn't be abusive, right? He'd control himself. But because he doesn't have God, doesn't believe in God, he abuses that woman. So because he abuses that woman, she leaves. He tried to control her during the relationship through the method and avenue of abuse. It didn't work, so therefore she left, right? And so now he feels even more out of control than he did in the relationship, because now she's leaving. So because he can't control her from leaving, and he can't control himself from how he feels as a reaction about her leaving, he ends up, killing her, right? Taking her out. And this is the stuff that happens every single day, and that's just one small example. Another example, say somebody loses their job, and if they had God, they wouldn't fear losing their job, because they would know that God's got them, right? And so you literally surrender your control on yourself and others up to God, because you know that God controls yourself and everybody around you, not you. God does, right? So you can't control your boss firing you, right? You can't control it. Say your coworkers went and lied to your boss about you and said stuff about you that wasn't true. You can't control what other people do. You can only control yourself. So there's people that'll happen to them, right? Where everything's out of their control for whatever reason it may be. The boss lets them go. They can't control the fact that the boss is firing them. But if they knew God and walked with God, they wouldn't fear or worry, because they would know that God always has a ram in the bush, right? So God is going to either line up a better job for them, or maybe this is God's doing. Maybe God wants the boss to fire that person so that that person ends up going back to school to start their own business, because that's actually their path in life, is to own their own business, and they're not. They're working at a dealership, or, you know what I'm saying, or at, a restaurant or something, okay? So you see, you understand, but then that person loses control over the fact that they couldn't stop the boss, the people from talking about them, and or the boss from firing them. And because they don't have God, they don't control themselves, so they can't control others, and that's out of whack. And then they can't control themselves, that's out of whack. So then next thing you know, they go and start robbing convenience stores or something for money, because they feel out of control, because they feel forced and pushed to have to do this robbery crime, because they don't have money and they got fired and there's no jobs, and how are they going to pay their bills and stuff like this. Or, they end up turning to drugs or something to make money. You know what I'm saying? And so these are just some examples off the top of my head that the Lord's showing me. So this is a lot of what's wrong with society today, is that people are out of control and they can't control others, and this bothers them. And then as a result, they can't control themselves. And so this is a lot of, not always, but often what leads to people to make poor choices, is that the feeling inside of them, feeling like, oh, I just can't control anything. Everything seems so out of control. And then that's one part. And then the second part is, they don't feel in control of how they can respond or react accordingly to the events handed to them, right? We all get handed poor days and poor events sometimes, right? But the key is surrendering control of others and ourselves to God. Because once we have God, we know that God controls, God controls me, He controls you, He controls my neighbors, He controls my family members, He controls everyone around me. I don't control anything, right? And the more that I come to terms with that and realize that, the more peace that I have, and the ability that I have to not control anyone around me. You understand? And I find that sometimes when I do step out of pocket and I try to control something, it ends up blowing up in my face, right? And it's hard. It is tough sometimes, because there's sometimes situations, like especially if you have kids and things like that, right? Where like the boundaries can get kind of foggy. But sometimes I step out. I mean, I'm human, but then God corrects me and reminds me, like, no, you can only control yourself. Leave this to me. I got this. I understand it's one of the hardest things for us to do, is to do that, to give up control. Because especially to God, like to me, it's not an issue anymore, because I've spent a long time working through it, right? But I can relate to how people feel, because I was in the world once too. And you don't want to give up your control to anybody, let alone to God, when you don't like see God. You know what I mean? He's not an actual physical thing that you can like test and like put him to the test and see how he performs. You know what I mean? Like you could with someone around you in the flesh. So I can get that, right? But at the same time, I've done both. I've walked both paths. I've walked a path where I've been trying to control others and out of control of myself, and it brought me nothing but heartbreak, backlash, betrayal, hurt, anger, frustration, right? And troublesome situations. But then now I just give everything up to God, and it does get hard sometimes. I'm still human at the end of the day, right? So I'm flawed, but at the same time, I'm mindful of it. And so God keeps me mindful of it. So because of that, I keep myself in control for the most part. And because of that, it allows me to stay mindful and in remembrance that I can't and don't want to control anyone else around me, because I already have a full plate myself to eat of my own stuff. Why would I want to double up on, someone else's, right? And so anyway, so I say that to say, because this is a concept that these people, whether they are adversaries in your personal life, chosen one, that don't get this concept yet, and it's because they don't have a relationship with God like you do. So if you're with me so far, okay, you'll know what I'm talking about, and it's probably the same for you, is that maybe once upon a time you were still in the world, right? And you were feeling a lot of like the person I described in the beginning, but now maybe you too, through season after season, situation after situation, year after year, time after time, God has also worked it on you and through you and with you to teach you this fundamental lesson about control. And so because of that, it allows you to leave everybody to their own situation, their own path, right? It's just like I always use the driving example when we're driving. Imagine if I'm trying to drive my car and yours and my family members and my coworkers. I'm trying to drive all these cars. How can I do that? Even me driving my own car, if I close my eyes for too long or I turn and look on the beside me for too long, I can crash. So just imagine if it's that delicate when I'm driving my own car. Imagine how much worse it would be trying to control everyone else's cars. Controlling my own is difficult enough, let alone everyone else's, right? Especially when the weather's bad and the roads are terrible and stuff. And so that's kind of like the speed bumps and road conditions of life, is that it makes it even harder to try to do this in tough situations, okay? So this is something that bothers these people in society about you, chosen one. I know I got people bothered about me because they are still where I was, where they're trying to control everything around them, including me. They're trying to control me, and they can't control themselves. And so all this is doing is putting them in this never-ending loop of, well, okay, the Lord's saying stupidity. Okay, his words, not mine. But it fits, right? This never-ending loop of stupidity where it's like, I always use the phrase of like peeing in the wind. It always just comes right back at you. And then you're mad and upset that you're wet. And it's like, but you did it to yourself. You knew that. It's like, that's a perfect analogy actually, because you can't control the wind, right? God controls the wind. So God controls you having to use the bathroom, like relieve yourself. He also controls the wind. You decide what time of the day you're going to actually, give into the urge and relieve yourself. But if you don't, you can't control the wind, and so God will pick it up when he sees fit and sends it back at you. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he does, right? It just depends. You don't know, right? It's a variable, because it's something you don't control. If you controlled the wind, you'd say, hey there, wind, could you just like stay still and quiet for like 5 seconds while I relieve myself? But you can't do that. It's something out of your control, right? That is a perfect example of us with our life. God controls the wind, but he also controls me and you. He controls our neighbors. He controls our family members. He controls the politicians, the government, the school system, the police force, all of it, because he controls all the elements, right? Like I talked earlier about Doctor could be a doctor of 30 years. He could exercise all the life-saving efforts. But if God decides that is going to be, if there's going to be, a final outcome to that situation, then that's what it's going to be. But vice versa, if he decides, no, I'm going to save both of these, I'm going to perform a miracle right now and save the mom and the baby, then that's what will happen. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the thing, is that God was talking to me about this because this message is very important, right? It's very important. This is something that separates the chosen ones from the average people. This separates the devil's kids from God's kids. This is something that they don't understand about you, chosen one. They don't get it, okay? In the past, maybe they threw 10% at you and they watched you like flip out. And here today, they're sending 90% at you, 9 times as much, and you're like barely flipping out. And I mean, you might flip out still sometimes. You're human, right? We talked about it. But you know what I'm saying? They're like, we don't get it. Like in the past, we threw 5 things at this person, they flipped out. Now today, we're throwing 500 things at this person, and they're barely flipping out. Please explain. Meanwhile, God is having these adversaries go through half, not even a third of what they send to you. So they're sending you 500 things. God is sending 250 things, if that, back at them, and they can't handle it. They're flipping out. And so to them, it's proving, God is proving to these people physically in our everyday world, day by day, the very crux of the message that I'm speaking about right now. This is what it boils down to. So then it gets into where they're jealous of you. This is something else the Lord was talking to me about, okay? They become jealous of you. And it's not so much that they're just straight jealous of you, like that is what it is. But there's a seed to the jealousy. The seed of it is they don't like the fact that you have something that they don't have. And so that's the heart of jealousy, right? So we know what jealousy is. Like, oh, you wish you were me, you wish you had what I had. Like, we know what jealousy is, and it's toxic. Like, all jealousy, all of it is toxic, okay? This is why the Bible talks about envy is one of the 7 deadly sins, right? And jealousy rots the bones and stuff, okay? Is because it'll basically rot you from the inside out. And what the Lord's kind of showing to me yesterday is that these people try on the surface to look very controlled and put together and like collected. Okay, they try to do this because we are aware in society that it is not a good look. It's not beneficial. It doesn't bode well to look out of control. We know that people that look out of control get usually criminalized, they get talked about, nowadays everyone has a camera so everyone can record audio record you or video record you. We can take screenshots of things, you know what I mean? This is not, out of all the past decades, this 2025 is not the time to get out of pocket, right? And we just know that in society in general, whether you have a relationship with God or not, okay? So because of that, they know that it isn't very becoming to act out of character. So because of that, they will try very, very, very hard to stay collected, okay? But the problem with that is that they haven't done the work inside. So it's basically like the Lord is saying spray painting a weed. Okay, so what he means by that is, you were once a weed when you're in the world, right? Because you didn't learn these fundamental lessons back then, and so were they. You uprooted, well, it wasn't just you and God, uprooted your weed seed, right? And pulled that right out and planted a new seed. And as it takes time to grow a tree or a plant or anything, it took time, effort, and energy to cultivate your seed with water and love and attention and tending to and all of that, okay? That's why God's the master gardener. And in time, your seed grew an actual rose. So you in the past had a weed and now you no longer do. Now you genuinely, authentically, organically have a rose, okay? But these people close to you and otherwise, like, it's so hard to explain how it is, but like, those in society and those that are close in your orbit, you know what I'm saying? Strangers and acquaintances. Both sides were aware of the fact that you had a weed once upon a time, just like them. Now today, fast forward to today, September 2025, they still have a weed, you have an actual rose, and it's starting to smell. You know how once a rose grows, it starts to open up and it's very vibrant, it's very fragrant, right? You cannot miss a rose in full bloom. This is what's happened, is that these people are aware of the fact that you genuinely have a rose. Right now, the Lord is showing me that rose that's in the Beauty and the Beast thing, right? I don't know what, I don't know. But you know what I'm talking about. There's that rose that's it's protected, okay? That's what the Lord is showing me, that this is what it's like for you, okay? So they are jealous and upset with you because you have that and they still have the weed seed. Now, if you'd always had that, that would be bad enough as is, but because you used to have a weed seed like them, they are upset by the fact that here it is all these years later and they still have the ugly weed seed. You had an ugly weed seed and yours is gone. It's not that it just got cut off, it's like actually gone. You grew something totally different that they do not have. And what you have is it's more precious. This is why it's protected in that glass case, right? It's precious, it's delicate, it's beautiful, and it's very noticeable. Like, it looks beautiful, it smells beautiful, all of it, okay, compared to them. That is like correlated to like your soul. Your soul is so much more beautiful, like inside, right? Now, in the past, you maybe had the weed seed inside when you were in the world, and you tried to make yourself look like a rose. Not purposely, but makeup, hair, clothes, da-da-da-da-da. But so outside, you looked like a rose. You looked vibrant, you looked beautiful, you smelt nice, da-da-da. But inside, you were this weed seed, okay? This ugly weed seed. I hope no one's getting offended. This is how the Lord's showing it to me, so bear with me. These people that are still associates of you, chosen one, okay? And whether they're associates, these are just people in general, right? Because like attracts like. So they know that you have something that they don't have. Now, on your outside, whether you look like you're a beautiful rose or not, you could literally have like a ponytail if you're a woman. A guy, same thing. You could be wearing, you know what I mean? You could be wearing pajama pants and like a holy shirt with stains on it. And you will still give off this impression of having this beautiful, authentic, rare, genuine rose on the inside, okay? So Lord's showing me that in the past, you used to look great on the outside, but not so good inside. Now, even if you look not so great on the outside, you look amazing on the inside, okay? So just like how jealousy rots us from the bones are deep inside of us. You can't see our bones, right? So jealousy is the opposite, where it festers inside and then it pushes its way out. Whereas with this rose, it might not show itself per se on the outside, but it's inside. So inside, you're a beautiful, precious rose. No matter how you look on the outside, that's the inside of you, to your bones, in the inside of your bones, that's what you have. These adversaries, however, on the inside of them is that ugly weed seed that you once had, okay? But what they do is, so because there's this contrast between you and them, and it's obvious, right? It's obvious. Whoever comes into, gets in a vicinity of you and gets in a vicinity of them, it's obvious. So to try to keep the charade going and to try to basically dumb you down, I don't know if that's the right word, but like to try to make you less, minimize you. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. To try to minimize you, okay? They try to keep you looking rough on the outside. For some of you, maybe not, right? Some of you maybe, but for those this pertains to, they try to keep you looking rough on the outside so that even though you genuinely are this beauty inside, it makes people want to do a double take or, say, ha, and do a ha, because the outside looks rough, okay? So I always like to use numbers because it makes the most sense. So inside you're a 9 out of 10. They want to try and make the outside of you look like a 2 out of 10. And they do this by doing different manipulations and spell works and things to try to make you look less than. And we hear this sometimes, right? That they try to do like beauty spells and stuff to where they try to take your beauty and make you look ugly and things like this. But not just that, right? They've tried all that, but it's not just that. This is why they go and slander you and talk about you. This is why, is because if they can go to everybody else and say, oh, even if it's lies, because remember, you're a 9 out of 10 inside, you're a genuine rose inside, so it requires lies. What are they going to, if they tell the truth, what are they going to say? Oh yeah, they've changed, they're a beautiful rose inside. They've always been attractive on the outside, but now they're even more attractive inside. They're not going to say that, right? So instead, to try to minimize you, they will go and gossip lies about you to people intentionally and make stuff up and say, oh yeah, I heard that they do this, and I heard that they do that, and I heard this and this. Whatever things they can do to try to make you look ugly, okay? Not just outside, but inside. Because they know that these people know that you are an attractive person on the outside, right? So they try to do things physically and spiritually to try to make you look on the outside and feel ugly about you and make other people have an ugly impression of you, okay? But it doesn't just stop there. So I hope that right there answers to you, chosen one. This is why they slander and gossip and lie about you. I just nailed it. This is why, okay? But then on top of it, to really make these allegations stick, to really stick it to it, right? And to make them not look like the ugly, terrible weed seed person they are inside, because remember, you're a 9 out of 10 inside, they're a 2 out of 10 inside. They spray paint. Oh, this is why the Lord said this. They spray paint the weed seed to look like a flower too, okay? Now, it doesn't take long for someone to come, if someone is truly around these adversaries for like a half a day, they're going to know that they spray painted the weed seed and that they're genuinely just jealous and they're a 2 out of 10 ugly inside. They're going to know, okay? But what they're relying on is this like surface level false impression, falsities type of a thing, right? So they can't let people get too close to them, especially those that aren't in on this, so to speak, of what they're doing, right? Because once people get close to them, they're going to see the truth. And so this is why we hear a lot about the mask and stuff like that. So I hope we're understanding. So you have this beautiful, genuine, real, true, bona fide rose. It's not spray painted or fake. At one point, they thought you spray painted your weed seed too, that you, all this time, you've had your original weed seed like them, and that you were putting on airs and trying to be fake and pretend that you had a flower when you didn't, da-da-da-da-da. This is what they were trying to tell people and accuse you of doing, okay? And try and chalk it up to that. But they've uncovered and discovered that that's not true, that like this is the real deal, like you actually genuinely do have a bona fide real rose. And not only do you have one, it is protected by that glass case and it glitters and shimmers. The Lord just keeps showing me that image from Beauty and the Beast, because the Lord has it protected. So yes, they've tried to take this for themselves and they cannot, because it is protected like that flower is, okay? And it is something that it's the difference between someone who's been actually touched by God and someone who hasn't, and someone who claims to be but actually hasn't. That's the difference, okay? So one of the benefits of having this real rose inside is that you are able through it, it has many benefits, this is just one that the Lord's showing me, you are able to control yourself and not control others, okay? Whereas in the past, when you had the weed seed, you were maybe struggled to control yourself and wanted to control others. And because of that, this is something that caused a bunch of hardship for you in the past, and it led you down the wrong roads, okay? But now that you walk with the Lord wholeheartedly and truly, one of the benefits of that is the Lord has taught you the error of your ways. So now you see, looking back in hindsight, all the ways that you fell short, right? And not just that, so you've learned your lessons, okay? But not just that, because of the fact that you have genuinely, authentically embraced the Holy Spirit inside, God doesn't dwell where there's ugly, right? Where there's mess. God, wherever God goes, it gets better. And so, like, he'll renovate it. Like, if he has to go stay at a dingy hotel room, he'll renovate it and make it better, right? He's like, this is not acceptable. Like, God will not dwell in the slums. He will literally revamp the surroundings and the areas to suit him, because we hear God doesn't bless mess. And that's correct, is God will bless you, but he's not going to bless your mess. Like, he does make mess better. You know what I'm saying? He'll renovate your mess, but he's not going to walk in and say, ooh, this looks like mess, I'll bless it. No. He literally says, I'm going to improve this. Impress the mess. He was just about to tell me, okay, I'm going to impress the mess. So I hope that's making sense, okay? So he doesn't bless mess, he impresses the mess. And so he makes the mess to impress, okay? I hope it's making sense. So, because you have genuinely, authentically accepted him in your heart as your Lord and Savior, he's taught you these things, he's renovated you from the inside out, he's cleaned these things up, and one of the things that took time to do was he pruned and cultivated this, this rose inside of you, okay? And it took time to bloom and blossom, but now it is and has, and therefore it needs to be protected, okay? So these people have been trying to do the same things to you in the past that they did to try to get you to act follow the same pathways that you did in the past when you had the weed seed like them, okay? And this is why they've been very good and clever at trying to come up with these different suggestions, is because they're coming from like attracts like, right? So knowing knows knowing. So of course they can throw these things at you because they live in this all the time. Like, they know how to throw mud at you. They sit in mud, right? This is what they know best. And so this is why it seems like you're getting it all the time in all areas and directions from all ways, from people that you know personally and people you don't. Like, those just in society as a whole, like I said, like governments and police systems and like educational systems and your boss and coworker, things like this, customers at your job, but then also from those closest to you. And the devil wants to use those closest to you the most out of all, because they would have, when you compare apples to oranges, they would have the better success rate at getting this reaction out of you than strangers, because strangers don't know the buttons to push on you like those closest to you do. Growing up, those family members knew what your triggers were. Same with those friends, people you knew for years that you used to pal around with, right? They know your triggers, you individually specifically. On top of that, they know how to sling mud because they have been sitting in a pit of mud for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however old they are. Okay? So they got a lot of mud to throw. They got it by the bountiful because they're completely surrounded by it. And they're not now, but in the past, they were confused by how these tactics were not working, because they're like, okay, we knew you for a long time. Even if we don't know you, all your ins and outs, we talk to people around you who know your ins and outs, and we've teamed up, and we've literally covered all the bases here. And we used to throw a little mud at you and it worked, and now we're doubling down and throwing huge handfuls of it, and none of this is it's just not making sense. We used to be able to do this to you with 3 people, now we're using 300, and it's still not, you know what I'm saying? And so this is why you were going through such spiritual battles and attacks and warfare in the past, was because they were trying to test God and what he had did. And what was fueling the fire was the jealousy that what they threw 100 at you and you didn't react. God turned around and threw 10 at them and they did react. So they were upset and bothered about the fact that you had something over them. And it was the fact that, how is it that we throw 100 bullets at you and you take them all and you're fine, 10 get thrown back at us and we're down for the count? It's because, so they spent a long time testing the theory, the Lord is saying, hallelujah, testing the theory to see, and they've discovered and uncovered that it is, in fact, that you have genuinely, actually, truly changed. You don't have the ugly weed seed anymore you once had, or that you had in connection with them like they had. This is why you all are separated and cannot get together in any way, shape, or form, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, because you are no longer a tare. You both were tares. You are now a wheat, and the time comes, the Bible talks about it, when God plucks the wheat from the tares, right? And so it has already happened. You have went from a tare to a wheat. God took the tare right out and planted a wheat instead. And the only reason he did this was because you went into covenant with him. If you were still in the world and never went into covenant with him, he would have still been watering and, looking at that tare that you originally had, that ugly weed seed, okay? And not only were they able to see your rows, your wheat, but once that happened was when God plucked you and said, okay, we're done here. You're not growing with them anymore. The time is up because I've done what I've came to do, right? And the funny thing is that a lot of these people could have what you have. They could go through they could get it too. They could have their tare removed and a wheat seed planted and grow a rose instead. And they wouldn't have to spray paint anything and put on airs and put out fake images and wear masks and look like they're something that they're not. They're an ugly weed seed inside, but pretending on the outside they're a beautiful, delicate, rare flower, rose. They wouldn't have to do that. It could be just as genuine and authentic and organic as yours. But they choose not to do it. They absolutely refuse to go to God. And this is the thing, is we have to think that if God has blessed us, as mankind, with these high IQs and these creative abilities, and we're able to manipulate and play God in certain ways, whether that's physically or spiritually, that shows us how blessed we, if my point is if you can create an artificial womb, you're that intelligent, God blessed you with the brains and ability to create an artificial womb. Just imagine how far that scientist could really go if they had God on their, in their pocket, a covenant with God. How far they could go. It's so you don't have God and you created an artificial womb. You don't have God and you're able to manipulate the weather in certain ways. God still supersedes whatever it is that you're doing, of course, because he's the higher power. But my point is if you can run 10 laps without God, with God, you could probably run 20 or 30. You know what I'm trying to say? And so this is even these adversaries that come against you in your personal world, chosen one, is that it goes to show that some of these adversaries are probably naturally gifted, a lot of them, right, by God in some certain ways, for them to be this manipulative and strategic to come up against you. And so God is basically saying, what would you rather make? Say some of these people make $100 a day without God. Just say, well, did they ever think that with God, if they had the ability without God to make 100, with God, with that higher power, holding hands with you, you could start making 1,000 a day. Did you ever think about that? And so this is the thing, is that if God is able to uproot a tare and turn a weed seed into a wheat and a genuine rose flower, and not just that, but protect it and keep it safe, hasn't this shown them anything? When a doctor has been to medical school for 10 years and practices medicine for 30 years and has saved countless lives, but one day can't, hasn't this taught him anything? That there's a higher power somewhere? Because if your track record is out of every 100 patients you saved 90, why didn't you save all 100? And with God, maybe you could save 200. You see what I'm trying to say? God's like, how much more do I have to show off? Like, how much more do I have to show myself? And like, I'm sorry, it's dumbfounding to me, right? It's dumbfounding to God, but even to myself, like, it's like, I just don't get it. So instead of just, and sometimes they do, like, I've made words about that in the past, right? Where the Lord has showed me that sometimes I'll say, I'll have what she's having, and like, they want it too, and they will go to God. They will. But because the road to God is hard, right? It's not an easy road. You have to give things up because God doesn't bless mess. He's not going to come to you and say, oh, you have addictions? That's fine. You can keep those addictions. I'll just sit over here on the sidelines and bless you while I wait. Oh, what? You want to continue to fornicate or like sell your body for money, or you want to try and go against people and hate yourself and hate me and hate people around you? Oh, great. Sounds perfect. I'll just wait over here and just keep blessing you. Yeah, for sure. Just sit back and wait for the money to roll in and the love and everything's going to be perfect for you. Like, that's literally what these people want God to do. And God is like, I don't go and accept mess and bless it. That's not how I operate. If you want me, I'll come, but you have to allow me to renovate the place and clean things up and impress the mess, not bless it. Okay, there's a difference. And they don't want to do that work because the other thing too is they saw what you had to go through. And when they say, yeah, I want it, God, I want you, please help me, God says, okay, and he starts serving them back the dish that they served you. You ate it, but they eat a few bites and they crumble. And God's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You want the rose like my chosen one has, and I understand why that would be, but my chosen one had to eat this whole mess, this whole buffet of stuff that you plopped in front of them in order to have it. And these are the requirements. And if they can do it, and you want what they have, then why can't you? Remember, you're very gifted. Remember how smart you think you are and how you're so manipulative and strategic and clever and cunning? Well, you got great start off points. Just buckle down, suck it up, and eat this mess like you served them. And then once you do that, we can start to get somewhere. But it's tough, right? It's tough. You know how tough it is, chosen one. And so they're at a crossroads where they're like, okay, my back's against the wall. I see that I've tested it. Yes, I see it's a genuine rose. I see I still have an ugly weed. I want a beautiful rose too. But I see that what the chosen one went through maybe wasn't as easy peasy as I thought it was. And I also see that it's going to require a lot of me to get the ball rolling. And every time I sit down to try, I buckle somewhere along the way, right? But this, and so it is what it is. This is how, like, I talked about in the past word how I put out about how you have to pass the test with a certain grade, right? God says you have to eat this and eat this and eat this and eat this until you get an A. I will settle for a B, but nothing less. Every time these people sit down to do the task that you had to do, they can only eat a few bites and then they fold. They only ever get a D or an F, a D or an F, a D or an F, and God's like, this is not acceptable. I'm sorry. You can whine and cry and stomp your foot, but this is the exact same process that I put this chosen one through. And they did it. These are the requirements. You either meet the requirements or you go back over there to the corner with the devil and I'm going to, put you in a timeout. That's it. There's no option C. You either sink or you swim. And these are the exact same terms that you put on my chosen one in the past. And so now they're jealous and mad at you either way, chosen one. When they have what you don't have and you have it and they don't, they're mad and jealous and coming at you. But then when God is gracious and says, okay, you want what they have, fair enough, eat this buffet of mess then. They can't do it. And so God says, okay, then you don't get what they have then. And then they're mad and jealous and upset that they have to go through all these struggles and toils and everything to get to where you are. But that's what they put you through, though. You did it. But yet in the past, they wanted to sit and even now and say that you're so terrible and you're so horrible and you're so this and you're so that and you're so this. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, if you're just such a terrible, horrible person and you're so this and that and this and that, then how are you able to eat 5 plates of mess and they can't even eat a half of a plate of a half of one plate? Please explain. So this is what it's called when they have to eat humble pie, okay? And so on a side note, I got to say, because Lord keeps showing it to me, this is why Jimmy Kimmel has such an issue with Donald Trump, is because Donald Trump has something that Jimmy Kimmel wants. Jimmy Kimmel is jealous of Donald Trump. Point blank, period. That's what it is. And so many people are jealous of Donald Trump. And I mean, let's look at it and think about it. And I'm not here to be his #1 fan or anything. I'm speaking on behalf of the Lord. The man is blessed. He has a wife who's beautiful, who looks 20 years younger than him. He's been rich his entire life. He owns plenty of successful businesses, at least he especially did in the 90s. Everything he touches turns to gold in one way, shape, or form, right? He's respected. He's well known. He's been president twice. He's a billionaire. And even though he's 80 some years old, he still dresses in nice suits and talks with, conviction, and he even has personality. Whether people like his personality or not is irrelevant. He's got personality, right? No one else is like him. He's one of a kind. And that bolsters the fact that he's a chosen one. The Bible talks about chosen ones are going to be unique. We're going to be peculiar. We're going to be people that are set apart. And so if you're a cookie cutter and you all look the same and you act the same and you all work on the same frequency, then you're probably not a chosen one. And so when your back's against the wall and it's too hard and tough and you're in God's proverbial timeout, all you can do is sit and hate and boo and spit on the winning team. Because you have to watch from the bench. You have to watch from the sidelines. And you could play too, but you're going to have to put in some work and effort. And then when the MVPs come along, the true chosen ones that were on the bench once and practiced and toiled to get out on the field and actually play their heart out and play one heck of a game and they win the trophy, well, now the losers, the forfeiters are sitting on the sidelines going, boo, you suck, ma. Did I miss anything? Is that not what it is? Right? And so if we see that at the sports game, we'd call those people sore losers. We'd say, you're just sore and mad that you didn't win, but you didn't win because you didn't play. Why are you mad at these ones for winning? They were set apart. They were chosen as the winning team. The MVPs of all, the best of the best. And so of course they won the game. What did you expect? These are the top athletes over here, right? But so when in doubt and you have nothing else to do, run to hate. Because that's what happened in grade school when everyone was in grade 2 and this team, red team versus blue team, and they were playing soccer, and the red team wins. The blue team, because they're little kids, they're childish, they go, ooh, we don't like you, you're mean. And they feel like this because the other team won and they lost. That's what it is. And they're jealous that they have something they don't have, which is the win, the W, the trophy. They have it and they don't. You see what I mean? Diplomacy, the Lord is saying. Hallelujah. Diplomacy, okay? So this is what Jimmy Kimmel's problem is with Donald Trump. This is what so many people's problem is with Donald Trump. This is what people's problem is with me. This is what people's problem is with you. This is what people's problem is with the chosen ones. Is because, why do you get to win and not me? But God is saying, I have sympathy for you, I do. But I have came to you with the exact same requirements that you have to eat this type of food and you have to practice this long and this hard and you have to show up here and you have to do this. And when you play professional sports, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't be distracted with sex and females and men. You know what I mean? You have to focus, right? You literally have to go within and isolate yourself. Everyone else is out partying, you're in bed by 10. Everyone sleeps till noon, you're up at 6 in the gym. There is a discipline that's required. There's a discipline and a focus and an attentiveness, a sacrifice, and you refuse to do it. So what do you want from me? This is where these people are at. And so this is why they don't have any other choice at this time, chosen one, but to rely on celestial events like eclipses and Halloween and portals and stuff. This is all they have left. Relying on witchcraft and manipulation and gossip and slander and lies. This is all they have left. Because when somebody wins, this is how the loser feels, okay? And again, I'm not trying to be crass or anything. I'm just like, this is how the Lord speaks to me, okay? This is how I hear from the Lord. And this is what he's saying. And so these adversaries, you and these adversaries in the past struggled to control yourselves and wanted to control everything else around you. How much money you made, what job you worked at, what people said about you, how your partner treated you, how much your family paid attention, like, how much connection or whatever intimacy you had with your family members. You wanted to control all these things. But control comes from the ego, right? Control comes from the devil. Control comes from ourselves. Control comes from our ego. It's when we walk with the Lord wholeheartedly and we prove ourselves to the Lord by not buckling after a couple bites of the mess, but where we actually push through. And there were times you choked on that mess, chosen one, when you were eating it. There were times that you had, stomach aches from that mess, chosen one, after eating it. There were times that it pushed you to your limit, right? And of course, I'm speaking spiritually, right? Of course. But you still push through. And so there's people that were given the same assignment and they couldn't hack it, they couldn't do it, and they were mad and upset that they couldn't do it and they failed, and they're mad and upset that you passed and you did it, and they're mad and upset that you have a reward that they don't have and you have a W and they have an L, and they're mad and upset that, you could push through and they couldn't, and all of this breeds contempt. It breeds jealousy, and it rots them from the inside out. And so on the outside, they try to look good. Women are using their makeup and their fake lips and their eyelashes and their hair. They're trying to put on the image of, look at me, I smell like a rose, don't I? I look like a rose, don't I? Aren't I so dressed up and beautiful? But inside, they are ugly weed seed. And they always have been. And they expect God to just walk in with a magic wand and go bibbidi bobbidi boo and just all of a sudden make them, have this rose inside like you have, as if you just snapped your fingers and it came to be. And they don't understand that, no, you actually went through some things. You actually struggled to eat what they gave you sometimes. That, it's not a walk in the park. And this is what they thought of you this whole time. They thought you were faking it. They thought that it was, and when they thought that you weren't faking it, you really did something, they thought it was easy. And so God is firing back at them what they said about you. God's like, oh, I thought it was easy. I thought they didn't do anything. I thought that, everything just got handed to them and it was just so snapped up and snapped together. But now when I allowed you to see how they went through it to get it, and now I'm offering the same to you to receive the same, God's not treating you any better than them. And the Bible talks about this. God says he's not a respecter of persons. He doesn't favor, right? Meaning that this is what he's talking about, is that this is what I mean, is that what the assignment that they gave you gladly boasted a reward. And now they want the reward like you, but in turn, they have to go through the same assignment. It's just like how I made that example in my past word, where I said some kids took that MAP test in social studies and got an A right away. But I had to take it like 6 times to get that A. Other kids had to take it 10. Because our teacher was not going to move on until we got an A. Anything less than a B was not acceptable, period. Whether we had to work on that for 6 months, he didn't care. This is what we had to do until we learned it and knew it and proved it. And I'll tell you what, today, 30 years later, I still know all of those states. And I know it's because he drilled it into us, right? And so this is the thing, is the Lord isn't doing this because he's mean and terrible. He is doing this because this is how he is. And one of the biggest number 1 lessons that must be learned is surrender of control. You cannot walk with God and believe that you control yourself and can control everything around you. It is literally not possible. Sorry, I was getting a text. It is literally not possible, okay? So if you want to walk with the Lord and you want to trade in that weed seed for a beautiful genuine, authentic rose, it's possible. But you have to go through the steps to get there. It's not a walk in the park. It's not easy. And yeah, you may have made it look easy, chosen one. Just like I'm sure it's not easy to be the president of the United States of America. No matter who's the face, who's in the position. I'm sure it's not easy. I personally would not want to be the president. I mean, it would be nice to have all the rewards and trappings that go with it, but I know that it would be a lot of pressure, it would be a lot of expectation, and I know I'd be scrutinized the entire time, because if I raise the cost of living, everyone's going to cry and whine. If I lower the cost of living, everyone's going to cry and whine. If I up minimum wage, everyone's going to cry and whine. If I lower minimum wage, everyone's going to cry and whine. If I make healthcare expensive, everyone's going to cry and whine. If I make it free, everyone's going to cry and whine. There's going to be somebody who's going to be upset. You cannot make everybody happy. It doesn't work that way. And so these are the things that the true chosen ones had to learn and work through. We had to stop pleasing other people and just accept, hey, people aren't going to like me. I'm going to make some people mad. And all I got to do is just wake up and breathe, and people are mad. And this is the thing, is that Trump isn't going after anybody. I mean, I'm not, again, speaking his praises. He could probably refine himself on certain things, how he says things and how certain things he says and how he says it. But he is not treating people with the hate spew that they are treating him with. And the same thing goes to be said for you too, chosen one, is that there's a lot of hate spew about you. But I'm here to tell you the reason why, if you don't know already, is because they're jealous of you. You have something that they don't have. In Trump's case, he's a president with billions of dollars. And it also bothers Jimmy Kimmel and others that the more mud they sling at him and throw at him, the more he brushes it off and doesn't care. He doesn't care. He genuinely doesn't. I don't know why people are wasting time, effort, and energy sitting here, taking time out to type out hate at chosen ones, or speak hate about chosen ones, whether to us directly or to others about us. We don't care. We truly don't. And this is something that bothers these people too, is they know for a fact, Jimmy Kimmel knows that no matter what he says, Trump is going to go to bed rich and the president, and wake up tomorrow rich and the president. And he's backed up by God. God is leading him to do these things. Is everything going to be perfect? No. Is everyone going to be happy about it? No. But it is what it is. And so it doesn't matter what Jimmy Kimmel or Bob Joe or so-and-so says. He doesn't care. He literally doesn't care. He's just going to get into his first-class private jet with Melania and fly to wherever he wants and eat a 5-star first-class meal, and go to bed and use the hot tub, go to bed in his $1 million home, put on his suit and call it put on his pajamas and call it a day, and wake up the next morning, put on his suit and repeat. And this is the same with the chosen ones, the same with you chosen ones, that it's you don't care. Yeah, we're human. Do we love it? No, of course not. Nobody loves having people, everywhere you go, everyone's trying to give you a dirty look or an evil eye or say something terrible. Of course that's not fun. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, it's not going to stop the mission that God has for you. Because if Trump or me or you chosen one, we stop and go, oh God, I don't think I should. I'm receiving a lot of hate. I better go back to this and that, and I better stop. God's like, what? Huh? I never said that. Get back out there. And so even if you wanted to stop and cry in your pillow, God's like, no. This is the thing. It's these people that are against, me, you, the chosen ones, whoever we all are, this is why they have such a beef against us. They're upset because we have stuff they don't have. We've done things they can't do. We're not bothered. We're undeterred by whatever mud and hate they spew out. They're starting to see that it's just making them look bad. Like I said, peeing in the wind, it's only making them wet. Because the wind is calm and cool, and they're like, oh, I can go pee now, it's perfect. As soon as they start to relieve themselves, God comes and blows a big gust of wind up. And then they're mad. They're like, what? I don't understand. It was calm and chill out here, and all of a sudden I'm wet. Yeah, because you don't control the wind. God does. And so every time that these people spiritually or physically go out to try to achieve something, because the waters look calm and it looks still and relaxed, and they, oh, perfect, the coast is clear, I can do A, B, C, D, E. God all of a sudden comes and blows a wind gust up. And then these things blow back in their face. And it doesn't make sense to them. And it's because they haven't learned the fundamental lesson that you learned a long time ago, Chosen One, is that you can only control yourself. Even Trump understands he can't control people's opinions of him. It is what it is. Obviously, it doesn't feel good to have, millions of people dislike you, sure, but you digress anyway, right? And it doesn't matter if you're just living in a small town Hickville, like some of us are, or if you're the president of the United States, you carry on. Because you are being pushed and led and guided by God. And people may like me or not, oh well. People may like or not like him, oh well. We didn't decide this. This is who God chose. This is why God says he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. This is why he says this. Is because that's what his way of saying, I will decide. Man may say, hey, God, hey, this one's qualified, go with them. And God's like, no. It's just like David was the least of his 7 brothers. Same with Joseph. God doesn't care about people's opinions. He's not bothered. And so therefore he gives the same to his chosen ones. You didn't ask to be qualified or even called chosen one, but you were. And that's the same with probably even Trump too, right? And so there's people out there that are going, well, so-and-so should be president. What about so-and-so? And they're so much more qualified. And they're this and that. God doesn't care. And this is why he even says, I will open doors that man wants to shut, and I will shut doors that man wants to open, because I will decide. So this is the thing, chosen one, is that if those people leave your life, whether they already have or they do in the future, hold everything loosely. Because there could be, you could say, no, God, I really want to keep this job. And God says, no, I'm shutting a door on it. So even though you want this job and your boss wants you, too bad, so sad. I'm shutting the door. You want this door open, this boss and your coworkers want the door open? Oh, well, I'm shutting the door. Because I decide. And then you could say, God, I don't want this kingdom spouse anymore. I don't want this relationship and this partnership. I don't want this. And you could do everything humanly possible to cut this person off. But God will say, no, I'm opening a door on that relationship though. I understand that you don't want this person, they don't want you. That's nice. I'm opening a door. But God, there's a third party involved. I know, that's nice. I'm shutting the door on the third party. The third party doesn't want the door shut. The third party wants the door to stay open. I know, that's fine. I'm shutting the door on the third party though. You understand? This is something that you've come to discover and accept, chosen one. And because of that, this is how you're ahead of these people. And they want to be where you are. And they could be where you are. And maybe some of them will one day be where you are. But it's going to require that they learn the things you learned and go through the things you went through. And one of the biggest fundamental lessons of the processing portion is you have to give up. You have to wrestle with your ego, kill your ego, and learn and accept that God controls everything. Even if we can play God for a limited amount of time in a limited way, God will allow it to an extent. You may have cut this kingdom spouse off for an amount of time, or they cut you off, or you both did, or whatever it is. But when God says, I'm going to now open that door, it will be opened. But likewise, if God says, no, I'm going to shut the door on that, you want the spouse, they want you. If God says, I'm shutting the door, then it's going to be shut. And you are going to be fine with it either way, chosen one. You're unbothered about it. It's just like with Donald Trump. If somehow he loses the presidency tomorrow, he'll probably be bothered about it, but he will carry on into his life anyways. Right? Because this is the thing, this is a lesson you learn, is that you literally, your ego doesn't go anywhere. It's a part of you till your last dying day. But you, instead of it riding shotgun with you, you put it in the back seat. And you say, okay, God. And so before it used to be you driving and your ego sitting shotgun with you. Now God drives, you co-pilot beside God, and the ego's in the back seat. And that's where the chosen ones are at this time. But these ones that are coming against the chosen ones, whether it's on a small scale or a large scale, they're still trying to navigate and drive their own car with their ego riding side by side, passenger side. It's not going to happen. And then they're wondering why they just keep crashing. Well, and of course you can relate and empathize, chosen one. You were in that same boat once upon a time yourself. You used to be there, okay? And you just roll with where God takes you. And so if they're trying to make your image look bad, or your rep look bad, or make your outside look bad, and make you look rough on the outside, you don't care. You let them, right? Let them. And not only that, you're not bothered by it anyways. Is it nice? No. Do you love it? Well, of course not. But at the same time, okay, you know that you cannot control what other people say about you, what they say about you, how they look at you, what they think, da 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 da. You can't control these things. The only thing that you can control is how you feel about, like, you can only control yourself. And so therefore you can only control how you conduct yourself, how you think, how you feel, how you respond and react. And these people are starting to learn that about you, and so this is why they're trying so hard to double down on this hate spew on your case, my case, and other, but on a small scale and a large scale, is because they are trying to get some sort of a reaction out of the chosen ones, because they know that the chosen ones, despite everything, still have a human element to them. So even though your ego's in the back seat, they're still trying to poke at it, because it may not be front and center, but it's still in the mix, in the back seat, right? But this is still, the Lord is allowing it, because he's letting them do it to teach you both a lesson. He's showing them that no matter what they do, they can't open doors he's shut and shut doors he's opened, especially when it comes to his chosen ones. But then simultaneously, he's also showing you, chosen one, to continue. Maybe eventually he's going to want you to move that ego from the back seat to the trunk. Right? You know what I'm saying? It used to be front and center, now it's in the back seat. Maybe he's working on trying to move it all together, all the way to the back to the trunk, where it's not seen or heard at all. And so maybe this is why, okay? So this message is very fruitful. There's so much in here. It's explaining why these ones do this against the chosen ones, how they really truly feel, what they've been up to behind the scenes in the past and what they're up to right now, what they're going to be trying to unload in the future, how you really feel about it, right? So it's revelation to them and confirmation to you, because you already knew this, okay? But like I said, my messages attract both sides. Those on God's team, of course, but also on the devil's team, because they got to come and see, check the pulse, right? And God knows that. So this is why he has me speak the way I do and address my messages accordingly, is because sometimes some of the things I say aren't necessarily for the chosen ones, the children of God. Sometimes they're for the Jezebel spirits that come along that either aren't in awakening yet, or are God has them in kind of like a preliminary period. I don't know, training, I'm not sure. But they are sent, and the Lord allows them to come, right? And they're sent to me, and the Lord has me speak in ways to address them too. So I literally, through my messages, am hitting both sides, God's team and the devil's team. For God's team, this is like confirmation, right? For the devil's team, this is revelation, so that maybe they can see things, because I always talk on my channel about how they think 2 + 2 = 6. This is what they think. But slowly but surely, the Lord is starting to open them up. They went from a 4 to a 5, or the true answer, 2 + 2 is 4, right? They think it's 6. Now he's moved them from a 6 to a 5. So they're starting to get closer. They're making some progress, okay? They used to, like, you knew 2 + 2 was 4. They thought 2 + 2 = 6. Now they've moved down and relented and said, okay, well, maybe I could see it being 5. So they're still not all the way there yet, right? They haven't come full circle, but they're on their way. They've at least moved from thinking it's 6 to thinking it's 5. So instead of being 2 points away, they're only 1 point away. So they're getting closer. So that's progress. But yeah, so anyway, so going back to what I was saying, so this is how they try to play God in your life, spiritually chosen ones, because the Lord was showing me that some of you that had checked out the past title were either disappointed or, kind of bothered, because it's like, oh, you thought I was going to be addressing in that word about, like, these adversaries, right? Spiritually, how they try to play God in your life, right? And so here's that message for you all. The Lord told me that, and then this is why he's giving me this one today. So this is like a follow-up to that. But yes, that's correct. Is people try to play God in everyday people's lives and in the chosen ones in a physical format, but also in a spiritual format. And that's right, chosen ones, is that you and me both, they try to play God in our life and dictate. God says the spouse is for you. These adversaries say, no, it's not. And they try to, put a kibosh on it. And God's like, no, I will allow you to put a kibosh for a limited amount of time in limited ways. What they want to do and what they do are two totally different things, chosen one. They want to go a 10 out of 10. They want to completely like nuclear your life, okay? And God only allows them to do like a 5 out of 10. And so like you want to get a brand new home, say for instance, they want you to be completely homeless and destitute. So instead, the middle thing is God just keeps you living where you're at. Okay? Like, you want to be a millionaire, they want you to not even rub 2 dimes together, and so God just, the middle ground is where God just keeps you where you're at. You see? And so this is the thing, is they want to go 10 out of 10 on the chosen ones, and that's because they want to play God to the tilt, and God says, no, I will allow it to a point. And that's just like with these scientists and doctors and things like this and whatnot. They want to corrupt the world, and they want to create this whole corrupt, evil agenda and empire. And God says, no, I will allow it to a point. It's just like World War II went off. It did, but only to a point, right? The plans Hitler had were far greater than what actually happened. And that's even with the spiritual World War III that's been going on behind the scenes for all this time. The same thing. What they wanted to happen and what has happened, God has muted and dampened down the plans that they actually had. And they keep trying to strike a match and go back to the drawing board and rehash and recreate, because every time God thwarts the plan, instead of taking it as a surrender, they take it as a challenge. And then they think, oh, we just have to do this more, or try this more, or, oh, I see we had a hole here and a gap there. Let's go fill that in and try again. Let's regroup, they're saying. Hallelujah. They want to regroup. And God is like, no, do you not understand? It doesn't matter how many times you try to stack the cards. I'm the one that's causing a weird gust of wind when all the windows are shut. And I've made that, and the Lord has given me that analogy before. I've made that same analogy in past words, where they keep building this house of cards. But as we know, cards are flimsy and they fall easily. And they just put all their time, effort, and energy in trying to build this house of cards. And as soon as the house of cards is almost as built the way they want it, how they want it, they make sure all the windows are shut. They make sure there's no draft from anywhere. They literally create and spend time creating an enclosed dome to put over the house of cards. And still, somehow, some way, in a supernatural way, God causes a proverbial wind, a gust of wind, to come up from nowhere and blow those cards down. And this has happened over and over and over and over and over again. And instead of accepting defeat and realizing that the Lord always shows me this in like Final Destination. If you've ever seen those movies, you know how it shows that they do all these things to try to avoid, and then like the weirdest of events end up happening that causes the final outcome anyways, the inevitable outcome. That is what it's like with God in these situations with these adversaries, is that God just keeps creating things. And then even like Jimmy Kimmel getting back on the air, that was also God. And so Jimmy went back and gloated about Donald Trump, like, oh, he couldn't get me off. The fact that Jimmy went off was God, and the fact that he was reinstated was God. God has more plans up his sleeve with Jimmy Kimmel. I'm just going to leave it there, maybe for another word. But this is the thing, is God gives and God takes, okay? So sometimes it'll look to these adversaries like their plans are working. They want things to be shut down with you and this spouse, and God will shut things down with you and this spouse. And then they take the credit for it, and they're like, oh, see, we shut things down with them and the spouse. Yay, yay, yay. But it was God that did it. And he does it for a bigger reason, so that later on down the road, then they go to try and stop things from you and your, like God resurrects you and your spouse, like Lazarus, he resurrects it. And then they're like, oh, it's resurrected. Okay, we just do ABC like we did last time and we'll squash this again a second time. And then they do it and it doesn't happen the second time. And so God is they're trying to play games and play tricks. God's playing games and playing tricks on them. So sometimes he'll make the plan work, sometimes he foils it. Sometimes it works, sometimes he foils it. And he plays, the Lord is saying, devil's advocate. Hallelujah. Again, I always have to look these words up after the fact because God says it while I'm speaking and I'm like, what? God is saying he plays devil's advocate with them, okay? Whatever. So yeah, so he's saying that while they're trying to like play around, and so in order for if it failed every time, then it wouldn't work to God's plan, and if it worked every time, it wouldn't work to God's plan, right? So he has to do this precise strategic measure of some things work and some things don't, and some things work and some things don't, where the odds look in their favor and then other times they don't. So they chalk this up to random happenstance, but it's not. It's been God all along, right? And so if they ever executed a plan against you and it worked, it's because God allowed it to work. And it was because it was what was needed at the time for a lesson in the moment, but also a lot of things were so that they could play out later on down the road for you and for these adversaries to teach you both a lesson and to show the glory of God. Because above all, this is the other reason why God does this, is because he's not only trying to say bring glory to you, of course not. He wants to glorify himself. And so when he does these, it's just like God will bring a random storm out of nowhere. You're not expecting it, but just out of nowhere a storm comes, right? But then out of nowhere a big beautiful rainbow comes right after it. Okay, so you never know, right? You never know, is today gonna be a storm day or a nice day, right? And even if it's a nice day, a storm can come up out of nowhere. And this is God's way of showing to us, just remember who's up here. Just remember who really runs things. Just remember who's really in charge. Okay? And so this is God's way too. At the end of it all, is just sometimes it's just so he can show off, like to glorify himself. Because you turn around and glorify God for that rainbow and that storm, and then he shows his glory to them through that storm and that rainbow as well, right? And so anyways, I want to get more into detail, but the Lord's telling me no. He's telling me I've said enough on this and that he will bring me back if there's more that needs to be said. So as always, I will be obedient. So I'm going to leave this message here for you chosen ones, and for all that it may attract, and for all those that it may be for. I trust that the Lord will lead you to this word in his right and perfect timing. And as always, those who have ears to hear will hear, and you will understand this message in its entirety, right? And I hope that this brings whoever revelation, confirmation, and for some of you chosen ones, some encouragement as well, as always, okay? And on that note, I'll be back when the Lord leads me to. I hope this finds you well. Take care, and God bless.